Are you selling any of your Palantir?
No, in fact, I am contemplating how much bigger I want to go now, which is not something I've said before.
All right,
I,
give me your
I
thoughts. How was earnings? What are you
Yeah,
thinking?
so I'm going to drop a full blown transparency statement. I own long both equities, and I also am in leaps and calls as well. I'm 100% long. I absolutely don't think anyone should copy what I'm doing, especially the option stuff. It's a little bit more complex than it sounds. Do not try to copy it. But just from the standpoint of my general sentiment and theme of my play here, when you and I did our video uh,
February.
in February, I expressed all the things I liked. We expressed some things maybe to be concerned with. Since then, I've done. It's so funny because I don't have a Palantir channel, but it's just something I like to talk about, so I talk a lot about it. So I sort of have almost like accidentally turned into that. But I've done like several videos on it where I've basically said to people like it's time to start using puts to protect yourself. It's time to start leveraging protective hedging strategies. It's time to look at straddles. And anyone who had listened to that would have made money the entire way down to the single digits. And I realized not a lot of people did, and that's totally cool. But I did. So my thesis was never that I didn't believe in it. My thesis was that there's going to be pain, and the pain really was there. This is the problem with a lot of the negativity I'm seeing right now is we've really forgotten that this stock was literally 300% plus what it is today, 400% plus of what the price is today.
Yep.
So the question is, after that precipitous of a drop, do we really think, like someone said to me the other day, this is going to $2. I'm like, man, if this goes to $2, like I'm going to own a huge piece of this company if that's the case, right? Because the contracts will be worth more than the company at that point, right? It's
Yeah.
it's absurd. Um, there is there. This is so funny that we started with Adam and we're going to go and get to carp, right? It's
Yep.
almost a perfect scenario of how genius misguided can fall off the rails, but genius misguided without serious things can get back on the rails. So look, we have a guy in carp who is very dynamic, and he is going to split people down the middle, right? You love the guy and think he's a genius, you hate this guy and you think he's an idiot. He is not an idiot. So let's get that off the table right now. You may not like him, but he's certainly not an idiot. So the question then becomes, how much of the day to day does a CEO of a company like this do? And I'm telling you, it's not a whole lot. Okay. He is a figurehead. Sure. He does say things that piss me off and got me very frustrated. I express those frustrations on YouTube. I express them on Twitter. But nothing has changed about the technology. Nothing has changed about the way they can process and work with data, both from a government perspective and a commercial sector. I went over um, all of the most recent earnings numbers. There was literally nothing in there that made me think like, man, this thing's in trouble. Yeah, if the price was still $25 a share, yeah, we're in trouble. It's way
Right.
overpriced.
Right.
But like even analysts are coming out in droves saying like, yeah, this is below the price it should be at. And I guess the big question here is I think a lot of what's driving people to be frustrated and angry is less earnings and less carb, and more that this term bag holding gets used like a childish insult in the world of investing. Like this idea of like you're an idiot because you're a bag holder, and I hear stuff like that all the time. I'm in actually so low that I'm in a really good spot. I bought all of my calls at $7.50. Not all of my shares are under $9. So like I'm sort of in one of those positions where like, yeah, I'm fine for the long term here and I'll hold it for whatever length I have to hold it for. But
Nothing
uh
in that earnings shook your overall thesis. Has the growth shook your
no,
thesis? The government stuff? Nothing.
let me tell you something that I've discovered. After 20 years of working in software and investing, the amount of people who are suddenly experts in analytics, data science, and investing, it's mind blowing. Everyone knows everything about how analytics goes to market. They understand how to build a sales team. They completely understand everything there is to know about designing and implementing a go-to-market strategy for a sales team. I mean, come on. Like you can have a guy like Carp who is going to definitely piss people off, but at the end of the day, if the guy that sells roofs is a total a-hole, but it's raining and I need a roof, that guy's putting a roof on my house. And that's the worst case scenario. We sort of got lucky in a sense of seeing the worst case scenario with carp. In my opinion, it can still get worse. And what I would just simply share is people are so stuck. Everyone's an expert, but yet they don't operate like an expert. if you are an expert at analyzing and taking action on stocks, then you most certainly don't care if they go up or down. You're playing both sides of it.
Yeah.
I've literally described how I do this countless times. This isn't about me, but just because I've literally put it in videos. I've made money when it goes down. I've made money when it goes up. I make money when it's neutral because I sell puts, and then I buy my shares at discounted prices, and then I buy long leaps at discount prices when the stock goes down. This is how you like manage a position to
Yep.
generate long-term profitable positions.
Yep.
This sort of like, I'm all in, I'm all out, I sold every single share, I'm not selling a single share. It's like, this is not a game. This is investing is the real world. This is real life. You have to do real analysis, but the analysis is not about the company. The analysis is about understanding how to take action based on the underlying fundamentals of what you're looking at. That's the key motion that no one has. So I think 98% of people who are out there talking about these companies, they're doing a great job of analyzing the company, but they're lacking the general knowledge of what kind of derivative build out of a position you need to take profit on the companies they're analyzing.
How
Like,
do you feel about the opportunity cost? Carp saying they're not going to be profitable till 2025. You don't want to have dead money for the next 2 years. Like, do you think it's dead money, or like,
I mean,
how do you
sure.
deal with that?
Hey, remind me real quick. How much is Adam's idea worth again? Just real quick. One
Three
billion
a
dollars. Yeah,
billion dollars.
$1
Yes.
billion and 350 in cash. So here's my thing. They're sitting on. Keep me honest on the numbers here. 2.4 billion in cash, 50 million in gold, and they have a credit facility of, I believe, 950 million,
Yep.
give or take.
Yep. And
Okay,
zero debt. Yep.
and zero debt. Does it sound to you like they're not profitable, or does it sound to you like they're reinvesting in R&D and building the company and attracting talent? People can hate the SBCs. People can hate what they're spending on. That's fine. Then you should not be in this. I think what's surprising me the most here is how emotional people are getting about a symbol. PLTR is just a symbol that represents just a company that just sells to other companies. And I think that the minute you start getting and tying your personal emotions to winning or losing based on how this company is doing, you're going to have a big problem. I think if you assess it for what it is, you look at their overall numbers. Look, they may not hit 2 billion in total revenue this year, which, yeah, I don't like that. That was a concern for me, but not a concern about the company. It's the trajectory that I'm looking at. I'm looking at a long trail, a long future dated forecast, right? So I wanted to see 2 billion, and they might still get there, but I wanted to see 2 billion because I want to see then, what's our next growth rate off of 2 billion, right? The reason it stinks to see that it came down a little bit is like, now you have to reduce some of your projections. But when people say like they've changed their forecast, it's like, correct me if I'm wrong, but have not most companies who have been through earnings also done the same? And if
Yes.
they didn't change it and they missed, would that be worse or better than if they now beat it after they changed it?
Yes. And Carp still thinks they can get 4.5 billion in 2030, which is 30%. It's just not the 30%
Sure,
literally every year. It's
sure,
wonky.
sure.
And then they
And
get there.
I think if you talk to people who work in that space, I literally work in that space. This is what I do. I literally sell analytics and data science. If it is lumpy, man, it is completely lumpy. 80% of my year comes in Q4, and even of that 80%, 90% comes in the last month of the quarter. So if people think like selling enterprise software is somehow this like beautiful even process, not only is it not that, it also, you're dealing with procurement officers whose entire job is to slow you down to push on more discounting.
Yep.
So everything naturally gets to the end of the year because they know that Palantir is going to be trying to hit their numbers, and they know they're going to get the best discounting. And everyone who works there knows that. Even if they're not experienced, they know that. The other thing I want to call out too, I'm super passionate about this, but not because of the company, but because I think it makes me nervous when I see the way people are analyzing a company based purely on like like, oh, we're lowering our guidance. I mean, cool. Did you dump all your shares of every other company on the planet that's lowered guidance? Of course not. It's a long-term gain.
Right.
So I guess what it comes down to is, and for the record, to be totally clear here too, if you say I'm getting rid of all of my Palantir shares because I think there's a better opportunity here, total respect. I love that. That's a great thing. But my fear is that a lot of people are saying like, "Oh, Kathy Woods lost her mind. Arc's down terrible. Who sells things, jumps in and out of them, and jumps into other positions to jump in and out of." And then no one looks at their own portfolio and they're like, "Oh, that's me." It's like, the time to have got in is when this thing was $6, $7, $8. I mean, that's when, and again, we've talked about too. Like that's when I was like, "Yep, I'm going on calls and I'm going to make some huge returns down the road." Again, not financial advice, but that's the kind of opportunity I'm looking for. I mean, there's a reason why analysts are coming out and saying like, yeah, we think the stock should be hitting somewhere around $20 again. in the not too distant future. Well, I'm looking at a 300% return on my option.
Right.
I mean, if you think you're beating 300% returns by going somewhere else, I'd love to hear where you're going, because I'll go there too and I'll go and check that out. I just don't think that that's going to be the case with a lot of folks. So, anyways, I'll sum it up by saying this. I saw that they changed guidance. I wasn't surprised by that. I saw that maybe they were slightly down on some metrics versus others. Concerning? It could be concerning if it carries over multiple quarters, but it's not concerning in the day to day or the month to month. My number one frustration with earnings was not the earnings, it was Karp's letter, but I've expressed frustration on this front several times. It's He has to deliver a letter the way he does it for a number of reasons. I can understand why he does it. But at the same time, if you are lowering guidance, it's very helpful to put in the letter, here's why, and the opportunity it will present by doing it this way. And I think when
It's almost like they sugarcoated it.
yeah, it was like, hey, maybe if I don't talk about it, nobody will notice.
Yeah.
But the reality is, it's very easy to get lost in the woods and realize that life isn't about this particular stock for him. Life is about building the company and
so him banging on the table, you think that's just Karp being Karp at the end of the day?
I mean, I think that was ridiculous. And I think, you know what's funny? We talked about this a couple weeks ago. We were talking about something where the fist bump with Biden and the Saudis.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where, like, in reality, did it matter? No. But the problem is perception. And if perception is that you aren't doing a good job and you do something to draw more attention to being not good at what you're doing,
You become defensive.
taken that way, it looks defensive. Like, I'm indecisive, so I'm going to make some noise and bang the tables around. That was my take on it. But again, and maybe this is just because I'm a little bit older and I'm doing it for a little bit longer. I just don't feel the stress on these things. But again, like, I would urge anyone, like, why not put a stop loss on your position so you don't lose money? Why not put a trailing stop so you can have some breathing room? Like, there's a whole myriad of ways to protect yourself versus potentially walking away from good positions. There's this terrible quote. I got to say,
go ahead. You got it.
There's this quote that's been around forever, and it is the dumbest thing that is it's told to retail investors, but not institutional investors. And it's always the same. You can't lose when you take a profit. Let me tell you something, man. Institutional investors have a very different phrase. It's called "let it run."
Yep.
And they let their profits run and run and run. And when they start winning, you know what they do? They buy more. And if that keeps going up, they don't sell, they buy more. But what does retail do? It goes up, I'm out. Right? Like now the irony of all this is this new resurgence of all the meme stocks have made people start thinking, like, I got to start letting my money run. That's why people are suddenly getting rich with what otherwise has never happened before. So anyways, I get super pumped up when we talk because I love these topics, but the reality is like, it does take stepping away and understanding that, like, there is someone on the other side of that trade who is going to want to buy what you're selling. And now I'm going to ask you a question because I haven't looked at the numbers, but I had heard earlier, or I either read it somewhere, it's probably even you, that 13F filings are up for Palantir purchases, and institutional buying at scale is happening. Are you seeing that across the board?
I mean, so Renaissance Technology, Jim Simmons funds increased by 125%. Fidelity increased by 3,000%. I did an article on this. I put it on Daily Palantir, right? Putting all the screenshots. Another one increased by 1,500%. I mean, yeah. Yep. Now they just closed August 12th, so could they have sold since then?
100%.
Sure. But I don't think you increase something 3,000%, see a $1 million beat on revenue, and then sell. It wouldn't really. You don't see that happen all the time.
I'll say this, right? Like, what's the current? I'm going to put you on the spot here, but, like, do you know off rough numbers the current market cap of Palantir?
20 billion, 18 billion at $9, something like that. Yeah.
Sake of conversation, let's call it 20. So you're telling me that over 10% of their current market cap is cash?
Yeah.
I mean, what? Like if they had no cash and they had no credit facility, or they were maxed out on debt and there's no cash, and they're saying there's going to be lumpy contracts and lowering guidance, those are terrifying things to hear. That's WeWork.
Right.
We're talking about a company sitting on
one of the healthiest balance sheets ever.
Super healthy. I mean, I don't even want to add to it. Like, how do I get better than what you just said? It's a super healthy balance sheet. And by the way, they're not saying they're not making money, they're just not making as much money, and only for a short period of time too. So again, I guess my takeaway here is you should not be involved in these kinds of companies. And I think that there's a reason why 95 to 9% should just be in index funds. And I think you're going to do great and you're going to hold it long term. But I think it's hard for people to emotionally get attached to an index fund. I think that's what drives a lot of the in and out stuff. You're trying to catch falling knives every single day, and you end up with a whole bunch of people with no fingers.